The UNSC destroyer Defiant drifted through the darkness of space like a wounded animal. Smoke filled the corridors. Alarms screamed from every deck. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the arms of her command chair as another explosion rocked the ship. Her knuckles were white. Her face was covered in soot and blood. "Damage report," she said. Her voice was steady despite everything. Lieutenant Chen looked up from his station. His hands shook as he read the screens. "Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7. Life support is failing. Engines at 15%. We have maybe 6 hours before the air runs out, Captain. 6 hours. 847 people on this ship. 6 hours of air left." The battle had been brutal. 3 Valkyris battlecruisers had ambushed them near the border. The Defiant was tough, but she was just one ship. They had fought hard. They had survived. Barely. But now the Valkyris fleet was regrouping. They would come back to finish the job. "Can we reach the fleet?" Vasquez asked. Commander Marcus Rodriguez, her first officer, shook his head. 12 hours at maximum speed. "We don't have 12 hours, Captain. We don't even have 7. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. They were too far from help. Too damaged to fight. Too slow to run. This ship was going to become their tomb. Then Chen spoke up. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange." "Strange how?" Vasquez leaned forward. "It's a distress signal. Biological signature. Coming from a moon in the system nearby. Just 40 minutes away at our current speed." 40 minutes? Marcus stepped closer to Chen's station. "That's in Valkyris territory. We go there. We're starting a war." "We're already in their territory," Chen said quietly. "And this signal? It's universal SOS. Someone is asking for help." Vasquez stood and walked to the main view screen. She could see the distant stars. Somewhere out there was a human fleet that could save them. Somewhere closer was someone calling for help. "Run a scan on that signal," she ordered. "Tell me what we're dealing with." Dr. Sarah Kim, the chief medical officer, came onto the bridge. She had been working non-stop in the medical bay for 6 hours. Her uniform was covered in blood. She looked exhausted, but when she heard about the signal, something changed in her eyes. "Let me see those bio readings," she said to Chen. Chen transferred the data to her tablet. Kim studied the information. Her eyes went wide. "This is a Valkyris life form," she said slowly. "A juvenile. Young. Very young." "A kid?" Marcus said. "One of them?" "Captain, we can't risk 800 lives for one enemy." "Look at these genetic markers," Kim continued. She was staring at the data like she couldn't believe it. "This isn't just any Valkyris. These patterns, they match the royal bloodline. This could be one of the Empress's children." The bridge went completely silent. The Valkyris Empire had been humanity's enemy for 20 years. A cold war that sometimes turned hot. Skirmishes along the border. Ships lost. People killed. The Valkyris were taller than humans, stronger, with hard shells covering their bodies like armor. They looked like nightmares. They fought like demons. And now one of their children was dying on a moon, calling for help. "We don't have time for this," Marcus said. His voice was tight, angry. "Every minute we waste is a minute closer to death. For all of us." He was right. Vasquez knew he was right. The smart choice was obvious. Turn toward human space. Try to reach the fleet. Maybe they would make it. Maybe not, but at least they would be trying to save their own people. But that signal kept repeating. Over and over. A child calling for help in the darkness. Vasquez had joined the military to protect people. To explore the stars. To make humanity better than it had been on Earth. She had seen war. She had killed when she had to. But she had never stopped believing that humans could be more than just survivors. "How long has that signal been transmitting?" she asked. Chen checked. At least 3 days, maybe more. 3 days. A child alone for 3 days. Scared. Hurt. Waiting for someone to come. Captain, please, Marcus said. Think about the crew. Think about the mission. We go into Valkyris space. We might trigger an invasion. Full war. Millions could die. Or we could save one life, Vasquez said quietly. Isn't that why we went to the stars? To be better than we were? Better doesn't mean stupid, Marcus shot back. Vasquez turned to face her first officer. He was a good man, a friend. He was trying to save the crew. She understood that. But she also understood something else. If we leave that child to die because it's convenient, because it's safe, then what are we? She asked. What does it say about humanity if we only help when it costs us nothing? She looked around the bridge. At Chen, still monitoring the signal. At Kim, waiting with her medical kit ready. At Marcus, angry and afraid. At all the crew members watching their captain make an impossible choice. I joined this service to save lives, Vasquez said. All lives, even our enemies, especially when no one else will. She turned to the helm officer. Change course. Take us to that moon. Maximum speed. Captain, no. Marcus started. That's an order, Commander. Vasquez's voice was hard now. Final. We have 40 minutes to save a life. Then, we'll figure out how to save ours. The Defiant turned. The engines burned at their maximum, damaged capacity. The ship groaned and shuddered. More alarms started sounding. But they were moving toward the moon, toward the signal, toward a choice that would change everything. In the medical bay, Kim prepared her equipment. In engineering, Rodriguez worked frantically to keep the engines from exploding. On the bridge, Chen watched his sensors as they approached Valkyris territory. And Captain Elena Vasquez stood at her station, knowing she had just bet 847 lives on her belief that doing the right thing mattered more than doing the safe thing. She just hoped she was right. Part 2. The Descent. The moon grew larger on the view screen as the Defiant times approached. It looked dead. Gray and brown, with massive storms swirling across the surface. Lightning flashed in the clouds. The whole place looked poisonous. Atmospheric analysis coming in, Chen reported. Toxic gases. High radiation. Electromagnetic storms that are going to mess with our sensors and communications. Can the shuttle make it through? Vasquez asked. Maybe. If the shields hold. If the storms don't get worse. If we're lucky. R. Vasquez almost laughed. Luck. They had used up all their luck, just surviving the battle. Behind her, Marcus stood with his arms crossed. He hadn't spoken to her since she gave the order to come here. She knew he was angry. Maybe he was right to be angry. But she had made her choice. How are the repairs going? She asked him. Marcus waited a moment before answering. When he did, his voice was cold and professional. Engineering says the engines won't last much longer. Rodriguez is working miracles down there, but miracles have limits. We've used up our last chance to reach the fleet. Even if we leave right now, we won't make it. Vasquez felt the weight of those words. She had gambled and lost, but she couldn't think about that now. There was still a child down there who needed help. I'm taking a team to the surface, she said. Captain, you should stay on the ship, Marcus argued. This was my call. I'm not sending anyone where I won't go myself. She looked around the bridge. Dr. Kim, you're with me. We'll need medical support. Lieutenant Park, security. Corporal Davies, engineering. We might need to cut through wreckage. The 3 officers nodded and moved toward the shuttle bay. Marcus grabbed Vasquez's arm as she passed. If you don't come back, this crew loses their captain, he said quietly. They need you. Then I'll come back, Vasquez said. She tried to smile. Besides, you'll keep them safe. You always do. Marcus let go of her arm. 20 minutes. That's all I can give you on the surface before those storms intensify. After that, the shuttle won't be able to take off. Then we'll work fast. The shuttle bay was chaos. Crew members were running everywhere, trying to keep the ship together. Fires burned in some sections. The smell of smoke and burned metal filled the air. Vasquez and her team climbed into the last functioning shuttle. It was small, meant for short trips and supply runs, not for flying through toxic storms on a deadly moon. The shuttle pilot was young, maybe 22. His hands were steady on the controls, but Vasquez could see the fear in his eyes. "Unreboard. Get us down and back up in 20 minutes, she told him. "That's all we need." "Yes, Captain." The shuttle launched. The bay doors opened to the darkness of space. Below them, the moon waited like an open wound. They hit the atmosphere hard. The shuttle shook so violently that Vasquez thought it might break apart. The shields glowed bright as they deflected the toxic air. Lightning struck them twice. The pilot fought the controls. Kim held onto her medical kit. Park checked his rifle. Davies muttered a prayer in Spanish. "There." Chen's voice came through the radio from the Times, defiant asterisk. "Coordinates uploaded. The wreckage is in a ravine 2 kilometers from your position." "Copy that," the pilot said through gritted teeth. They flew low over the moon's surface. It was worse than the scans had shown. The ground was cracked and broken. Rivers of acid ran through valleys. The storms made it hard to see more than a few meters ahead. But then they saw it, a Valkyris scout ship. Or what was left of one. It had crashed nose first into a ravine. The metal was twisted and burned. Half the ship was buried in the ground. It looked like it had been there for weeks. The shuttle landed as close as they could get. The team jumped out. The gravity was lighter than Earth's, making every step feel strange. Their suits protected them from the toxic air, but they could feel the heat even through the insulation. "Spread out," Vasquez ordered. They moved into the wreckage. The scout ship was small, meant for maybe 3 or 4 people. Inside, everything was destroyed. Broken equipment, shattered screens, and something else. Dried blood. A lot of it. "Here!" Kim called out. They found the child in what used to be the sleeping quarters. It was small for a Valkyris, maybe 4 feet tall. Its exoskeleton was cracked in several places. Blue fluid leaked from the wounds. That was Valkyris blood. The child was curled up in a corner, shaking. When it saw them, it hissed. The sound was terrifying even from something so small. It tried to back away but couldn't move. One of its legs was bent at a wrong angle. Broken. The child spoke in rapid clicks and whistles. The translator in Vasquez's helmet struggled to keep up. "Stay back. Don't touch. Please. Hurts." Kim moved slowly toward the child. She held up her hands to show they were empty. "We're here to help," she said. The translator turned her words into Valkyris sounds. The child hissed again. "Humans. Enemies. You kill me." "No," Kim said softly. She knelt down a few feet away from the child. "No killing. Only helping. You're hurt. Let me fix it." "Why?" The child's voice was weak, confused. "We are enemies." Kim opened her medical kit. "Not today. Today you're just a kid who needs help." She moved closer. The child tried to pull away but couldn't. Kim began treating the wounds. The child cried out in pain. The sound was horrible. But Kim kept working. She sealed the cracks in the exoskeleton. She stopped the bleeding. She gave the child something for the pain. Park's radio crackled. "Team, this is Time's defiant asterisk. We have a problem. Big problem. 3 Valkyris warships just entered the system. They're heading our way." Vasquez felt her stomach drop. "How long?" 25 minutes. Maybe less. They were out of time. Way out of time. "Kim, can we move the child?" Vasquez asked. Kim looked at her patient. The child was still conscious but barely. I've stabilized the worst of it. But moving will hurt. A lot. We don't have a choice. Davies and Park carefully lifted the child. It cried out again. Even through the translator, the pain was clear. They carried it toward the shuttle, as fast as they could. Above them, the storms were getting worse. Lightning struck all around them. The wind pushed against their suits. The pilot already had the engines running when they reached the shuttle. "Get us out of here!" Vasquez shouted. They strapped the child into a seat. Kim worked on it during the flight up, trying to keep it stable. The shuttle shook and rattled as they climbed through the atmosphere. The shields were failing. Alarms screamed warnings. Then they broke through into space and saw the fleet waiting for them. 6 Valkyris warships surrounded the Times Defiant Asterisk. Massive ships bristling with weapons. The Times Defiant Times looked like a toy next to them. A broken, dying toy. "Oh God," the pilot whispered. Vasquez looked at the child in the medical seat. At Kim, still working to save its life. At her team, who had followed her down to that hell moon because she asked them to. She had bet everything on doing the right thing. Now it was time to see if that bet would cost them all their lives. "Take us back to the ship," she said quietly. "And pray they let us dock before they open fire." Part 3. The Standoff. The shuttle docked with the Times Defiant Times just as the Valkyris fleet moved into attack formation. Vasquez ran to the bridge while Kim and her team took the child to the medical bay. Every second felt like an hour. Every heartbeat was too loud. When she reached the bridge, Marcus was already coordinating with engineering. He looked at her with an expression she couldn't read. Anger? Relief? Fear? Maybe all three. "They're hailing us," Chen said. His voice shook. "Put them on screen," Vasquez ordered. The view screen flickered. Then a Valkyris appeared. He was huge, even sitting down. His exoskeleton was dark, red, almost black. Scars covered his face and arms, old battle wounds. His eyes were like black mirrors, cold, hard, unforgiving. When he spoke, the translator turned his harmonic frequencies into clipped, precise words. "I am Admiral Kreshtar, commander of this fleet. You have violated our territory. You have committed an act of war. Surrender your ship immediately, or you will be destroyed." Vasquez stepped forward. She tried to keep her voice steady. "Admiral, we found one of your people dying on that moon. A child. We couldn't leave them. We're returning them to you." Kreshtar's expression didn't change. "You lie. There are no Valkyris ships in that sector. No authorized missions. You have taken a hostage. You will surrender now." "It's not a hostage. We're trying to help." "You are human. Humans do not help. Humans take. Humans destroy. You have 1 minute to surrender. After that, you die." The screen went dark. Marcus turned to Vasquez. "Captain, we need to abandon ship. Get everyone into the escape pods. Maybe some of us will survive. And leave the child?" Vasquez shook her head. "They'll think we took it as leverage. They'll hunt down every pod. No one survives that way. Then what do we do?" Vasquez thought fast. An idea came to her. Desperate. Probably stupid. But it was all she had. Broadcast on all frequencies. Video. Show them the medical bay. Show them what we're doing. Chen's fingers flew across his console. Channel open. Broadcasting now. The screens on the bridge showed the medical bay. Dr. Kim and her team worked around the child. Medical equipment beeped and hummed. The child lay on a table, its broken exoskeleton patched with human medical foam. IV lines ran into its body. Monitors tracked its vital signs. Kim looked up at the camera. She didn't know she was being broadcast to the entire Valkyris fleet. She just saw another camera in the medical bay. She went back to work, checking the child's readings, adjusting the medications. "Is this a trick?" Kreshtar's voice came back over the speakers. "Some human deception?" Ask the child, Vasquez said. Let us give them a translator. Let them tell you what happened. A long silence. Then, proceed. Chen rushed down to the medical bay with a Velcaris translator unit they had captured in a previous battle. He showed Kim how to use it. The child was weak, but conscious. The translator converted human speech to Velcaris frequencies and back. Kim leaned close to the child. Can you tell them who you are? Can you tell them what happened? The child's voice was barely a whisper. Through the translator, it came out in clicking, harmonic sounds. I am Zekthar, 7th Prince of the Imperial Line. I was on training mission. 3 months ago, there was attack. Not humans, our own people. My guards tried to protect me. They died. I crashed on the moon. I waited. I called for help. No one came. Until humans came. The bridge went silent. A prince. They had rescued a prince. Kreshtar's voice came back harder than before. This is impossible. Prince Zekthar died in a training accident 3 months ago. This is a human clone. A trick. I am Zekthar. The child's voice grew stronger. Angry. I am son of Valsera, Empress of the Velcaris Empire. And you, Kreshtar, you sent the assassins. You wanted me dead. You want the throne, for your faction. Another silence. This one felt dangerous. When Kreshtar spoke again, his voice was different, colder. Then you are a loose end that must be eliminated. All ships, prepare to fire. Destroy the human vessel. Leave no survivors. No evidence. He's going to kill us all, Marcus said. He's going to kill his own prince to cover up his coup. Vasquez looked at her crew. They had followed her here. They had trusted her. And now, they were going to die because she chose compassion over survival. In the medical bay, the young prince was trying to sit up. Why did you come for me? The prince asked. His voice was so young, so confused. Your ship is dying. Your people could have escaped. Why risk everything for an enemy? Kim smiled. It was a sad smile. Because that's what humans do. We help. Even when it costs us everything. Especially then. On the bridge, the Velcaris ships powered their weapons. Energy signatures spiked across the sensors. Chen watched the readings with wide eyes. Captain, they're about to fire. 30 seconds. Vasquez stood tall. She wouldn't die sitting down. All hands. This is the captain. It's been an honor serving with you. Hold on to what makes us human. Hold on to it until the end. Marcus stood beside her. At least we tried, Captain. At least we were better. Yeah, Vasquez said quietly. We were better. The Velcaris fleet's weapons reached full charge. 20 seconds. In the medical bay, the prince closed his eyes. Dr. Kim held his hand. 15 seconds. The crew of the Defiant Times braced for death. 10 seconds. Then space itself seemed to tear open. A massive ship appeared. Bigger than anything Vasquez had ever seen. It was black and silver, with designs that looked like art and weapons at the same time. Energy poured from its engines like a star going nova. Chen's console went crazy with alerts. Captain! New contact! It's a Velcaris Dreadnought. The size of a small moon. It's, oh my God, it's the Time's eternal sovereign asterisk. The Empress's personal flagship. The Dreadnought positioned itself between the Time's Defiant Times and Kreshtar's fleet. Its weapons systems came online. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. A new voice came over the speakers. This one was ancient, powerful. The translator made it sound like music made of iron and starlight. Kreshtar, you will stand down. Now. The Admiral's face appeared on screen again. For the first time, Vasquez saw fear in his eyes. Empress Valsera, he said. I was merely silence. The Empress's voice cut through his words like a blade. I have heard everything. The distress call. The human rescue. My son's testimony. Your assassination attempt. Your treason. She paused. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter, but somehow more terrifying. And now, I will deal with you. Part 4. The Empress's Choice. 12 more Valkyris battleships appeared around the Time's eternal sovereign asterisk. They moved into formation with military precision. The space around the Time's defiant times was now filled with 2 fleets of Valkyris warships. 1. Loyal to the Empress. 1. Loyal to a traitor. And the humans were caught right in the middle. Captain, what do we do? Chen asked. His voice was barely a whisper. Nothing, Vasquez said. We wait. This is their fight now. On the view screen, Admiral Kreshtar was trying to maintain control. But Vasquez could see panic in his movements. The way his hands clenched. The way his eyes kept darting to the side. Empress, I can explain, he started. I do not require your explanations, the Empress said. I require only one thing from you. The truth. Did you order the assassination of my son? Did you order the assassination of my son? Kreshtar was silent. Answer me. The Empress's voice boomed through every speaker. The Time's defiant asterisk's hull vibrated with the force of it. It was necessary, Kreshtar finally shouted. Your bloodline has made us weak. Making peace with lesser species. Trading, instead of conquering. You forget what it means to be Valkyris. I did what had to be done for the Empire. You murdered my child for politics. I tried to save our people from your weakness. The Empress was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was cold as the void of space. You will pay for this treason. But first, I wish to speak with the humans who saved my son. Where you tried to murder him, the screen changed. Instead of Kreshtar, Vasquez now saw the Empress herself. She was old. Incredibly old. Her exoskeleton had the deep color of aged wood. Scars covered every visible part of her body. This was someone who had fought 1,000 battles, won 1,000 wars, ruled for longer than most humans lived. But when she looked at Vasquez, there was something in her eyes. Something unexpected. Gratitude. Human captain, I am Valsera, Empress of the Valkyris Empire. You are captain? Elena Vasquez, commanding officer of the UNSC Destroyer Times, defiant asterisk. Captain Vasquez, I wish to see my son. Will you allow this? Vasquez nodded to Chen. The view switched to the medical bay. Prince Zekthar was sitting up now. Still weak but conscious. When he saw his mother's face on the screen, he started to cry. The Valkyris didn't cry like humans. They made a sound like wind through broken glass. It was heartbreaking. Mother, he said. Mother, I thought I would never see you again. The Empress's composure broke. Just for a moment. But Vasquez saw it. The ancient warrior, the ruler of an empire, became just a mother who had lost her child and found him again. My son, my precious son, you are alive. The humans saved me, Zekthar said. Their ship was dying. They could have escaped. But they came for me anyway. Mother, they are not what we believed. They are not savages. They are kind. The Empress looked back at Vasquez. You should have left him. Your ship is failing. Your crew could have reached safety. Why did you choose to save an enemy? Vasquez thought about her answer. Every word mattered now. The wrong thing could still start a war. Because he was a child calling for help, she said simply. And we are human. We help. That's what we do. Even when it costs you everything? Especially then. If we only help when it's convenient, then what kind of people are we? What right do we have to call ourselves civilized? The Empress studied Vasquez for a long time. Those ancient eyes seemed to look right through her, seeing everything, judging everything. You are either very wise or very foolish, Captain Vasquez. I am not certain which. Maybe both, Vasquez said with a small smile. The moment was broken by alarms. Kresh-Tar's fleet was moving, breaking formation. Weapons charging again. He's going to attack, Marcus shouted. He's going to try to kill everyone and take power in the chaos. Kresh-Tar's voice came through the speakers one last time. If I cannot rule the Empire, then let it burn. All ships, fire. Destroy them all. 6 battleships opened fire on the Times Defiant Asterisk. Vasquez closed her eyes. This was it. This was the end. But the missiles never reached them. The Times' eternal sovereign Times moved with impossible speed for something so large. It positioned itself between the Times' defiant Times and the incoming fire. The Dreadnought's shields absorbed the impact. Then it returned fire. What happened next was beautiful and terrible. The Times' eternal sovereign Times and its 12 battleships engaged Kresh-Tar's fleet. Energy weapons lit up space like lightning. Missiles streaked between ships. Explosions bloomed like flowers of fire and metal. It wasn't even a fair fight. Kresh-Tar's ships were powerful. But the Empress's forces were overwhelming. One by one, the traitor ships were disabled, their weapons destroyed, their engines knocked offline. They hung in space like dead things. The Admiral's flagship was the last. It tried to run. It didn't make it far. The Times, eternal sovereign Times, fired a single massive beam that cut through the ship's engines. It went dark, dead in space. Bring him to me, the Empress ordered. He will face justice for his crimes. Velkaris soldiers in powered armor boarded Kresh-Tar's ship. Minutes later, they brought the Admiral before the Empress. His hands were bound. His exoskeleton was cracked in places from the battle. But he stood tall, defiant to the end. You will execute me, he said. Make me a martyr. Others will follow my path. Others will follow my path. No, the Empress said. You will live. You will spend the rest of your days in a cell, thinking about the prince you tried to murder, the Empire you betrayed, and the humans who showed more honor than you ever possessed. She turned away from him. Take him away. Then she spoke to Vasquez again. Captain, your ship is severely damaged. Will you allow my engineers to assist with repairs? Vasquez couldn't believe what she was hearing. You saved my son when you could have gained strategic advantage from his death. When you could have used him as a hostage. When you could have simply done nothing and let him die. Instead, you risked everything to show compassion to an enemy child. The Empress paused. That is not weakness, Captain Vasquez. That is strength. A strength my people have forgotten in our endless pursuit of power. Perhaps we could learn from you, if you would allow it. You're asking for peace? Marcus said. He sounded stunned. I am asking for a chance, the Empress said. One act of kindness. One saved life. Perhaps this is where we begin again. Not as enemies, but as two people who might someday be friends. Vasquez felt tears in her eyes. They had come here to die, to save one child. And somehow, impossibly, they had lived. And maybe, just maybe, they had changed everything. We would be honored, Empress Valsera, Vasquez said. Within the hour, Velkaris engineering teams were swarming over the Times' defiant asterisk. Their technology was far beyond human capabilities. They sealed the hull breaches with adaptive plating that was stronger than the original armor. They repaired the engines and made them more efficient. They fixed the life support systems and upgraded them. The crew of the Times, defiant Times, watched in amazement as their enemies worked alongside them to save their ship. In the medical bay, Prince Zekthar was well enough to be moved to the Times' eternal sovereign asterisk. Before he left, He insisted on thanking Dr. Kim personally. "I will not forget what you did," he said through the translator. "I was taught that humans were violent, cruel, interested only in themselves. But you showed me something different. You showed me mercy when there was no benefit to it, no advantage, just kindness." Kim smiled. "Take care of yourself, Prince. And maybe remember this when you're older. Remember that enemies don't have to stay enemies forever." The young prince nodded. Then he was taken to his mother's ship, to safety, to home, and the Defiant Times began its journey back to human space. But this time, they weren't alone. They were escorted by the Imperial fleet, a sight that no human had ever seen before. The war wasn't over. Peace wasn't certain. But something had changed. Something important. One impossible choice. One saved life. And the universe was different because of it. Part 5. The Bridge Between Worlds. The Defiant Times arrived at human space 3 days later. The crew expected questions, debriefings, maybe even court-martials for entering enemy territory without authorization. What they got instead was silence, then wonder. When the fleet saw the Defiant Times being escorted by Valkyris warships, every human vessel went to battle stations. Red alerts sounded across 50 ships. Weapons powered up. Fighters launched. This looked like the beginning of the invasion everyone had feared for 20 years. Then Captain Vasquez sent a simple message. "Stand down. They're with us." The Valkyris fleet stopped at the border. The Eternal Sovereign Times was so large it cast a shadow over 3 human destroyers. But the Empress kept her word. She did not cross into human territory. She simply waited as the Defiant Times continued on. Before they parted, the Empress sent one final transmission. "Captain Vasquez, you and your crew have given me much to think about. I will discuss this matter with my council. Perhaps we can find a better way forward, for both our peoples." "I hope so, Empress. I truly hope so." The news spread fast. Faster than light. Carried by quantum communicators. The Defiant Times had gone into enemy territory. They had rescued a Valkyris prince. They had been escorted home by the Empress herself. The story seemed impossible, but it was true. When the Defiant Times docked at the station, they were met by Admiral Chen Wei, commander of the human fleet in this sector. He was old, gray-haired, with eyes that had seen too many battles. He walked onto the Defiant Asterisks bridge and looked at Captain Vasquez for a long moment. "Captain, I should have you court-martialed for unauthorized entry into hostile territory." Vasquez stood at attention. "Yes, sir. I understand. But I can't court-martial someone who might have just prevented a war." He smiled. It was a tired smile. "You took a hell of a risk, Captain. It seemed important at the time, sir." "Important? You bet 800 lives on a hunch that saving one enemy child mattered more than following orders. You're either the bravest officer I've ever met, or the craziest." "Maybe both, sir." Admiral Chen laughed. "Yeah, maybe both." He looked around the bridge at the crew. "You all did something incredible. Something that will be remembered for a very long time. I just hope it was worth it." The days that followed were strange. The Defiant Times, became famous. News channels wanted interviews. Politicians wanted to use the story for their own purposes. Everyone had an opinion about what Vasquez had done. Some called her a hero. Others called her reckless. Some said she had saved humanity. Others said she had shown weakness to an enemy that would exploit it. But something else was happening. Something quiet. Something important. Empress Valsera was true to her word. She opened communications with the human government. Not threats. Not demands. Just talking. Discussing. Trying to understand. The process was slow. There were decades of mistrust to overcome. People who had lost loved ones in the war didn't forgive easily, on both sides, but the talking continued. 6 months later, the first formal meeting took place. A neutral space station. Human and Velcaris diplomats sitting in the same room. Captain Vasquez was there too, along with Dr. Kim and the rest of her crew. They didn't speak. They just stood as examples of what was possible. Prince Zekthar was there too. He had grown since that day on the moon. Taller. Stronger. But when he saw Captain Vasquez, he approached her immediately. "Captain, I wanted to thank you again for everything." "How are you, Prince?" Vasquez asked. "I am well. Better than well. My mother has made me an ambassador. She says I should work toward peace because I understand what it costs, what it's worth. That's good. The galaxy needs more people who understand both things." The prince looked at the human and Velcaris diplomats arguing over trade routes and military exclusion zones. "This is hard. Harder than I thought. Everyone is so angry. So afraid. Peace is always harder than war," Vasquez said. "War is simple. You fight. You win or lose. But peace requires trust, forgiveness, hope. Those are much harder to find. Do you think we can do it? Really achieve peace?" Vasquez looked at the young prince. At the Velcaris and human diplomats. At her crew standing together. "I think we can try. That's all anyone can do. Try." The negotiations took 3 years. 3 years of meetings and arguments and compromises. There were setbacks. Times when it seemed like everything would fall apart. But both sides kept talking. Kept trying. Finally, they reached an agreement. The Velcaris Human Alliance Treaty. It wasn't perfect. It didn't solve everything. But it was a start. The treaty was signed on a human colony world. Representatives from both species stood together as the documents were sealed. Empress Valsera was there. She had aged even more in the 3 years. Her movements were slower, her voice quieter, but she was still powerful, still commanding. "Today we begin something new," she said. "Not as enemies, not even as allies, but as people who choose to try. My son was saved by humans who could have left him to die. Who should have left him? By any strategic calculation. They chose compassion instead. Let that be our foundation. Let that be our beginning." Captain Vasquez was promoted to admiral after the treaty was signed. She was given command of a joint human-Velcaris task force. The mission: patrol the border regions together, show both species that cooperation was possible. 5 years after the incident, Admiral Vasquez stood on the bridge of her new ship. It was a hybrid design. Human and Velcaris technology working together. The crew was mixed too. Humans and Velcaris working side by side. It wasn't always easy. Cultural differences caused problems. Misunderstandings happened. But they worked through them. One day, Prince Zekthar requested permission to come aboard. He was an adult now. Tall and strong, with his exoskeleton fully developed. He had become one of the most important voices for peace in the Velcaris Empire. Vasquez met him in the observation deck. They looked out at the stars together. "I wanted to visit this place," Zekthar said. "The place where humans and Velcaris work together. 5 years ago, this would have been impossible. Unthinkable. 5 years ago, you were dying on a moon," Vasquez said. "A lot has changed. Because of you. Because you made an impossible choice." Vasquez shook her head. "It wasn't impossible. It was just hard. There's a difference." They stood in comfortable silence for a while. Then Zekthar asked, "Do you ever regret it? You could have lost everything. Your ship, your crew, your life, all for me, one enemy child." Vasquez thought about that day. The alarms. The fear. The choice. She thought about her crew, who had followed her despite the danger. She thought about Dr. Kim holding the hand of a scared child while their ship was surrounded by enemy warships. "No," she said finally. "I don't regret it. Because that's what makes us human. Not our technology. Not our weapons. Our willingness to help, even when it costs us everything. Especially then," she turned to look at the prince. "And maybe that's what will save us all. Not weapons or treaties or strategic alliances. Just kindness. When it matters most." Zekthar nodded slowly. "My mother says the same thing. She says humans taught us something we had forgotten. That strength, without compassion, is just cruelty, with better weapons." They left the observation deck together. On the bridge, human and Valkyris officers worked at their stations. Navigation, weapons, communications, engineering, all working together. It wasn't perfect. The alliance was still fragile. There were still people on both sides who wanted to go back to war, who saw peace as weakness. But every day, ships like this one proved them wrong. Every day, humans and Valkyris worked together, lived together, fought together. One impossible choice. One saved life. That's all it took to change everything. Years later, a memorial was built on Earth, a simple stone monument with names carved into it. The 3 crew members, the defiant times lost in that first battle, the ones who died before Vasquez, made her choice. Next to the human names, there was a Valkyris honor marker. The highest honor the Empire could give. Placed there by Prince Zekthar himself, Admiral Vasquez visited the memorial often. She would stand there and remember that day. The fear, the doubt, the choice. People would ask her about it sometimes. Young officers, historians, children learning about the war that almost was. "Why did you do it?" they would ask. "Why risk everything?" And she would always give the same answer. Because that's what humans do. We help. We save. We try to be better than we were yesterday. Even when it's hard. Even when it costs everything. Because if we don't, then what are we? What right do we have to call ourselves human? The stars shone above Earth, above the Valkyris homeworld. Above the border worlds where 2 species learned to live together. And somewhere out there, on patrol in a hybrid ship, humans and Valkyris worked side by side. Not because it was easy, not because they had no choice, but because one captain, one crew, one impossible decision proved that enemies don't have to stay enemies forever. All it takes is one moment, one choice, one act of compassion when the whole universe says you should look away. That's humanity. That's what makes us worthy of the stars.